We can initiate now. 3, 2, 1. We are live.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another edition of I Have a Dream Fireside Chat this afternoon with Mr. Yashish Dahiya, the founder of one of India's most successful companies in recent years, PolicyBazaar. Welcome, Yashish, to this chat, and we're having this chat as we have entered our 75th year of Indian independence. We are celebrating 75 years of a lot of things that have happened as our Amrit Mahotsav. But more importantly, we want to use this as a year for us to be able to reflect how far we have come as a country and really see where we can go from here as we continue to move towards India at 100, and really find ways in which we can measure the impact of what has changed on the ground. How do we really bring collective action together, things like entrepreneurship, business communities, civil society, government, academicians, all to kind of work together towards realizing what we truly all believe is the golden age for India. So with those few words, really warm welcome to you, Yashish. And I want to keep this conversation, very, very candid, and really, want you to speak more from the heart and really begin like, we all say that we have a dream for India, right? Would love to understand, what's your dream for India and what really motivated you to get into a startup, to kind of build something which has created so much significant value and really put our country, up on the map out there for the world to see the potential of what India can achieve, particularly in the area of fintech. So, just any thoughts that you might have around that.
I think, to be brutally honest, my dream is actually, quite irrelevant. I think the reality is India is going to essentially wow the world over the next 25 years in terms of what all India achieves, and in a very nice manner, by being a huge democracy, by being very technically savvy, by not having any hurtful intention towards anybody, but at the same time being deeply strong and confident of itself. I think the magical moment for India actually was the UPI moment. Because when the UPI and the Aadhaar actually launched in India, the whole world noticed. Because it was not just cost efficiency, it was technical supremacy, and it was a thought process which was way ahead of whatever has happened anywhere in the world. And I think taking a leaf out of that now with the, Atal Digital Health Mission, with things like your account aggregator framework, I think in all of this, we are putting together a framework for the future, which quite honestly, whether you look east or west, has not been as thought through anywhere in the world as we are doing. We always had the entrepreneurial talent. There is no doubt about it. You always had Indians doing very well abroad. When the world needed engineers, it was Indians. When the world needed doctors, it was Indians. When the world needed entrepreneurs, when the world needed business leaders. Today, I'm not saying anything new, right? You just look at how many companies in the US, especially in the technical side, are being led by Indians. And those Indians are just as, if not more, capable of running companies in India. And they'd actually be prouder doing that. So I think our time, we don't even need to call it a dream. It's here. We have to make sure we don't lose it. We can't lose it. It's really, there's some things that you don't have to think about. You just know. If we lose it, somebody else will pick it up. I think for each of us individually, really the thing is, how much can we be a part of this growing India? Growing India is going to happen, right? And the leading India will happen. I don't think anybody can hold that back.
Yeah. No, I loved your word. You don't have to think about it, So when did you know that you're going to create PolicyBazaar, and tell us a little bit about that journey, because this will inspire many others, I'm sure, to kind of tread on this path.
To be brutally honest, the reason I started PolicyBazaar is because I could not find a job fast enough. Okay. And you'd be surprised when you talk to people. I was talking to another person recently, and they mentioned the same thing, that there were two people who joined British Gas. One of them could survive. One of them could not survive. And the person who did not survive went and became a billionaire and set up a large organization. And that's the truth of a lot of first generation entrepreneurs. The reason they're entrepreneurs is because they actually found it difficult to be employees in one way or the other. And so, but at the same time, there was a deep enough ambition to build something in the insurance category, because we have a lack of health insurance and life insurance in our country. And I can see that the middle class in India needs it more than anybody else. When a middle class person dies or falls sick, their family suffers in an irreparable manner, because we are not as a country rich enough today to have the social security infrastructure, which is very aspirational. We have a basic social security infrastructure, but it's not a very aspirational one, if you will. And it'll take us some years before we as a country become rich enough that we can afford that. Very few countries in the world can afford that. And those countries are at the $50,000, $60,000 per capita income range, right? We are still at, much lower. So I guess it'll take some time before we get there. And thus insurance is the way to provide that. And to me, this seemed like a lifetime opportunity. So it's a combination, right? But of things. But that is the big opportunity that I thought existed. And I thought we had to educate the consumers. The biggest part was educating the consumers on the need for health insurance, life insurance, etc. And when they did come on, they would do, they would do well for their families. And I think it was just a question of actually convincing them.
Was it difficult to, to educate?
It's very difficult.
Country like
I will give you a very simple example. My own mother's sister's husband is 66 years old. He's retired. His wife has every year got claims. And then I ask that, uncle, why don't you buy insurance for yourself? And he says, I would like to buy for my wife because I know she's claiming every year. But I don't want to buy for myself yet because I don't think I need it. So I think maybe we've come out of a mindset historically. See, we have been a poor country. I think the first thing you do when you want to grow is you make your realization. And so we have been a country with a lot of scarcity. So for people to take out 10,000 rupees, 20,000 rupees and put it out there with the hope that they will never claim it back, because that's the best case, right? Nobody wants to fall sick. Nobody wants to die to make, an insurance claim, right? So I guess that's a very tough ask, but at the same time, it's a very necessary ask, because what one has to see is statistically these events happen. I tell people, if you go to hospitals, you'll see most of the time they are full. And that's nothing to do with COVID or non-COVID. Actually, they were less full during COVID than without COVID. So I guess that realization requires a bit of depth, which is why you would see, when we advertise, we don't advertise in any medium except television, because we believe it is too difficult to get the message across through any other medium. Now we are putting in place a mechanism to actually meet people to kind of communicate this to them. So it's difficult. It's a very, very difficult one. It's difficult for the consumer. It's difficult for the industry also at times to understand and kind of come to grips with all parts of it.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting thing you say that, especially when you're offering something that will destroy a family, right? If that event happens, typically, as you said, especially in middle class families, because of the amounts that they have to pay, and you're expecting them to do it, in advance. I can only imagine, what you said, but I'm sure being a digital or a company of the digital age, while you've used television and all, you use a lot of digital technology, both in outreach, in your product, and you talked of the India stack and, how that is supported. So how technologically, how do you see your differentiator, particularly, in this space? Yeah.
So see, there are two different areas. One is desired products, and second is high convincing required products. So desired products tend to be loans or any mandatory products, car insurance, two-wheeler. in those, technology plays a huge role, and we would deploy all the technology required to make sure the process is smooth and the data is there and everything works smoothly. So you would see a lot of that. When you come to intent products being very important for people, but it's like, we've all studied latent need. Even the consumer does not understand he needs it. In those, what we find is the most difficult part is creating the inbound consumer demand, because without that, you almost do not get any sales. Whatever technology you put in place, like, you can't create an app out there which says in 5 seconds you can buy life insurance. It doesn't mean your life insurance sales will go up, because there's nobody wanting to buy, right? What you need is people coming and saying, hey, I think I want life insurance, because then your sales will go up. So yes, you have to deploy all the technology, but this is the big piece, Rajan, I believe, that the world of fintech hasn't quite grasped, that there are two parts to this. One is the consumer conviction, and then is the technology. Technology without consumer conviction doesn't lead to anything. And that's why in the world of insurtech, you've almost had no success whatsoever. Because almost everybody has focused on developing that really smart gizmo with no consumers coming to them.
No, I think this is a very important point, because any aspect we look in India, right? Especially, I know through India at 75 we talk, one of the best ways for India to get global leadership is to be able to skill our manpower, right? And we just take people from the slums and just put them into any skilling program that we think they're passionate about, and we feel that they will go through, and become, earn livelihoods, etc. But the baggage that they've come with, right? Understanding that, breaking that down, making them stick to something, it is such a critical thing, right? And exactly, therefore, what you said, I think it's the consumer conviction, or, the person conviction before anything else, that is so important for a country like India, right? Especially when we talk of building agency in people, enabling them to have some consumer spending habits. And given that we are a frugal innovation hub, at least we pride ourselves in that, it does affect, right? When people want services, they want products, but, they have a challenge on how will they pay for it. So how have you innovated, Yashish, around some of these challenges which are typically?
We try to be very straightforward about it.
Okay.
Because without being straightforward about it, you cannot get the communication home. So you cannot say nice things like buy health insurance, it's a good thing to have. The very simple thing is, people do fall sick, people do go to hospitals. The hospital bill is 35,000 rupees per day if you go to a good hospital. That's the average hospital bill in Delhi, Bangalore, anywhere, right? If you're in a big hospital, without naming any. And I think the middle class consumer in India is earning about 30,000 rupees per month. So essentially in a day, he would wipe out his 1 month's pre-tax earning. And he will still have to pay taxes on that. So I think, and he'll still have expenses. So I think it's impossible for the middle class Indian to afford healthcare without insurance. And unless a person hears it that way, they don't get it. And then they don't understand that it could happen to them. You have to just explain to people that look around you. Just look around you at the 20 people who are like you. Has any of them gone to hospital recently? You might find they have. So then why exactly are you different? And I think it has to be just that straightforward. I lost my uncle in 1983, and that's when I realized it. He was going to play basketball on a scooter when a truck came and hit him, and his house from the basketball court was less than 1 kilometer. When a truck came and hit him, and that was the end of him, right? And the family had to go through a huge amount of financial turmoil on that. So all I'm saying is a fit person, about 30-year-old, going to play a basketball match. He couldn't have even thought that he won't be there. But that does happen. If you look at statistics, there's a lot of death out there. It's like, what Buddha said, suffering, death is a reality. And in that situation, unfortunately, in the modern world with nuclear families, because India always had joint families, so we could support each other. But in the nuclear family system, you are left alone. to fend for yourself. And that is where the disaster happens. And I think people need to hear it just that way. And I know it's very, very harsh, but they need to hear it just that way to be able to convince themselves that they need this particular product.
No, you rightly said, while Buddha said that, death is the reality. I think everything that we're doing technologically, globally today, you look at is we can live longer. What can enable us to, because at the end of the day, life is the ultimate goal for any human being, right? Extension. And sometimes you wonder if you could live 1,000 years, I mean, what could you do, right? So the whole sense of achievement. So these are very, I think ethical issues that not only we as a country, but I think the world will need to deal with, particularly as, we move towards this crazy technological age, which we believe is really making disruptive changes on many aspects of human life. So, taking the technology piece again, sorry, I'm coming back to that.
Oh, absolutely.
If I do see India's strength 25 years from today, right? I mean, some buses, look at the AI, China and other countries, US, others have really, shot ahead. But, we are moving to a metaverse. We are seeing immersive technologies. We are seeing, this whole crypto world, which has come in, governments looking at some of these things, very differently. In some way, you do come into the fintech category, although, it's insurtech. How is all this confluence of so many technologies, disruptions, affecting you? Where do you see, us particularly as India, what should our stand be, position be as we, continue to innovate, but adopt and adapt these technologies and still maintain, the inclusivity and affordability for our citizens?
Rajan, the key aspect in my view is intent.
Mm-hmm.
And it is very difficult to gauge intent. So I do believe all of these technologies have huge positive potential. Blockchain has a huge positive potential. Immersive technologies have a huge positive potential. I think risk assessment we have spoken about and needs to always be there. I think one has to, at the same time, see what can go wrong. See, if you look at what one of the Fed people said, that in the last 20 years or 50 years or 80 years, since 1920 actually, they said that the central bank's role has historically been to be able to provide capital every time disasters happen. And somewhere you need to always know that you have the ability to handle the situation if things go really south, right? And I think somewhere one needs to address that. Now, in terms of technology, I think as far as insurance is concerned, the biggest change can come in the claims experience. At the point of claims, there's a lot of data available through multiple sources, which can, through the use of technology, be digitized. There is a policy which can be digitized. So an e-claims experience is critical. If we as a country believe insurance needs to grow, we have to grow the e-claims platform, because that is what will drive confidence in the product. Because today, what is the reason that some of the consumers are not purchasing? They say, look, it's going to be a pain getting a claim. But if you have a digitized process for both onboarding and claims, that has to come from the back end. And that has to be openly available to all formats of distribution. And I think, the National Digital Health Mission is a great start on that. The IIB is a great start on that. The account aggregator framework that we have is a great start on that. Regarding, metaverse, crypto, etc. See, we had Second Life way back in, the early 2000s. I remember, I think it was 2001 or something, we had Second Life.
Yeah.
So my belief is one has to watch these things a little bit. I think, and when I meant intent, what I usually mean is know everything that's possible with technology, but always make technology your slave, not your master. If you make technology your master at some stage, you will head towards disaster, because technology doesn't have a heart. And, it can cut any possible way. And I think a lot of things, with that are there could be quite problematic as well. So I guess you have to put the heart in front of the technology. You have to put the intent in front of the technology. What do you want to achieve out of it? And I guess we need to obviously trust each other, both the government, and that I'm seeing a lot of emerging, right? A lot of trust is emerging between at least the entrepreneurial ecosystem and the government in making these things happen.
And the entire space of policy making around supporting the growth of insurtech and other fintech enterprises. Any thoughts from you on is there something particularly that we should be?
I think the data. I think the data with consent needs to be much more freely available to all fintechs, all insurtechs, all everybody. And I think we have to also carry the old part of the industry along. We can't say that only the new will play and the old will not, because otherwise, what you will have is the old will feel a bit left out. That, hey, what was wrong with us? We built India during an era which was hard. Now, yes, it's an easier era, but we should also have a chance of participating. I'm talking for the people who are slightly senior to me, who have also built enterprises and they have equal capability of being entrepreneurial. But I think somewhere they need to be encouraged more also towards the technology side and being significant players here. And so do the young. So I guess data has to be made more freely available to all. It cannot be the property of any one private entity, in my opinion. It has to be consent-based, and the consent has to have very clear rules. What is a consent? How does the customer give a consent? And it has to be equally available to everyone. Of course, for a fee, perhaps, because clearly any platform that is going to handle such data is going to have certain costs, and thus a fee is necessary. And what do I mean by data? Today we have data on cars. Today we have data on people. Today we have data on accounts. Today we have data on people's financing, their investments, their credit, all of it. And thus allowing businesses to build gated experiences on top of this data is a great thing, as long as customers are opting in for that option. So at an aggregate basis, anybody can have access to data, but at an individual basis, that data needs to be gated through a consent.
Yeah. No, I think opting in is so critical, right? And I think that's where Absolutely. The abuse of data, of looking at, say, a photograph and deciding what needs to be served to that particular consumer is being challenged, because, if it's not something that one is, opting in for. But tell me, globally, there are so many best practices. I think the whole world is struggling really with this, right? There are some countries that have kind of figured out a little better than others when it comes to, data protection and how does one really go about doing this. We've made a lot of progress in India, right? On the non-personal data.
Europe's given us a good model to follow with their, GDPR. Yeah. But I think India will and should, because see, every government in the world acts from their own perspective. And what we have to see is a lot of governments, and Europe is a good model for us, and I'll explain why. See, most of the large tech players are not European. They are actually US. And so Europe is both a defensive play, a consumer play. Europeans don't gain too much by the large tech players having a lot of data access, right? So it's a kind of balance. And I think that is exactly where India plays. India will be developing its own, Indians will be developing our own companies, but to a large extent, the large global players are American in India. I think, and thus we will have similar concerns about, how data is accessed, how it is used, and how much control the consumer must have on their data, and how it should not be abused. So I guess we can take a leaf out of it, but my gut tells me that I think we will devolve. We will come out with an even more superior thought process data and data consent and data access. I think somewhere one problem that can appear is parts of the government might want to hold on to data and might want to make it power centers. I think we should try and refrain from that, because that will not be fruitful to anybody. This data is of no use if it is just held. It is only of use when it is used. Otherwise, it just becomes, static data.
Yeah, and data with consent, I think, is absolutely the way, to
Yes.
make it. And you pretty interestingly talk of India being, consuming, the technology, US, technology, but the world is today really divided, right, between, supply chains and technology, China versus US, and, India's positioning there. And this is an discussed, debated topic geopolitically, India opting out of RCEP, and, basically geopolitical changes, having an impact on the future of, companies that are coming out of India with very large global aspirations, right? In that light, any thoughts?
I will say, I think we need to have a serious conversation with our entrepreneurs in our government. I would be delighted to be part of that conversation, which says, okay, see, in India, we, for example, are a market leader, right? We've got our position, we've got our scale. Now, we should easily be able to expand abroad. And when I say abroad, I mean, at least, I'm not even talking about Europe and US yet. I'm talking about Middle East, I'm talking about Southeast Asia. Why not, right? But today it is very, very cumbersome. It is extremely cumbersome. And I'm telling you, the way many entrepreneurs are doing it is they will actually move out and set up their hub in Singapore or the UAE in order to be able to do that. Look, according to me, from an Indian perspective, that is, here I'm putting my India hat on rather than, Yashish hat on. And, being who I am, I can't help do that. I think it's a bit of a disaster that we are creating for ourselves. When our best minds, our brightest brains are in order to expand abroad. And I've been through that. We are opening a business in the UAE, right? We got the consent from the UAE in like 30 days. But our own consent framework has taken so long that, so our rules are not very friendly. Maybe we come out of fear that, FDI, capital account controls, etc. We come out of a lot of fear. But I guess we need to somewhere start to maybe give some appreciation to some businesses which have the ability to do so, because that's how we will create the next Googles. How will we create the next Googles? We won't, it won't just happen. We have to experience first. First, we'll have to go to, Indonesia, Malaysia, Dubai, become successful there, and then move on to the next level. As consumer businesses, as back-end tech plays, yes, you can do that far more easily. But and consumer businesses require investment. We have to go and invest in the consumer behavior there. But I guess it's time when a lot of businesses in India can do that. We have to make the rules easier for them somehow.
I think you're hitting upon a point which most and pretty much every new age entrepreneur talks about, right? At some point, after you hit a critical mass, this question of, where will you be based, especially when it comes to global aspirations, how does one really expand? Because, having seen that, and you rightly mentioned earlier that many of the $1 trillion plus companies, I mean, there are 6 in the world, 5 are tech, and, a couple of them headed by Indians, the Indian sweat and blood that has gone in creating those. Why shouldn't we as entrepreneurs from India at least aspire and be able to create that size, or that kind of an enterprise, moving forward? What holds us back, right? And what prevents that? And I started out by saying, Yashish, if you remember, that this vision of an India at 100 will get unlocked through multi-stakeholder participation, right? So what you rightly said, we need conversations, we need understanding. Just because 1% will misuse something, 99% cannot be there. But there is a baggage, right? There is a legacy. So we know the RBI has that innovation box within which the regulators do not apply. So we are doing those I think in pilots, but important, I think, for us as a country to unlock that at scale, right? So
we need to have the confidence to believe in ourselves, believe in our businesses, believe in our entrepreneurs. See, if I look back, the time when Indian thinking really went and exploded in the world was actually Ashoka's time.
Yeah.
And why did that happen? Because he had his 4 sons or whatever went out and spread the message. And I think I'm giving a historical example here. But otherwise, we've largely stayed to ourselves. Our people have gone abroad, but our companies have not really expanded abroad, and they can. Today, we are ready. We are absolutely ready. There's nothing in Southeast Asia or Middle East that can compete. I go to the UAE and I look at the entire, crypto world that's happening there. It's all Indians.
Yeah.
All 95, 90, not 95, 99%, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, there's nobody but Indians. Why are they not doing it in Bombay?
Yeah.
Somewhere we are making it, we are forcing our children to go out and do it. And in today's day and age, we don't need to. We can solve that. Why is the PolicyBazaar struggling so much for opening just one country? We've given up on it. We've publicly said we will not go abroad because it's too difficult. I don't have the ability as a public company to set up a Dubai or a Singapore center and kind of expand from there. I've already committed to being an Indian company. But you get my point. Those need to change. We need to have a conversation. We need to talk about the real issues.
Yeah. No, and you have perfected a model, which includes, which is inclusive, it has access, it has affordability, that the world is literally yearning for, right? And somewhere as an entrepreneur, I'm sure you're seeing that, right? All of us, go somewhere and we know that we can do this better than what is happening, especially when you go to so many countries, the price at which it can happen. I think these are real issues, right? And I think a discussion around that, if you were, today able to influence how to make it happen for India, right? I mean, it's not just the outcome.
Rajan, it's a listening conversation where we need to have 10, 20 people in a room, and the people who are at those decision points, right? People like us and the government people, and deciding, okay, these are the 3 things we will do to simplify. These are the biggest pain points. There are certain pain points, but today, and I think we are ready. I think the government is ready to listen. The entrepreneurs are ready to go global and do well in India. Now it's a time for action. When I look at my own regulation, I see the new chairman and I see the kind of statements that are coming out. They're like phenomenal. It's music to the ears. So now I think the alignment is there. The intent is there.
Yeah.
Now it is, okay, can we make it to action? And for action, we need to have the hard talk.
Yeah.
And look, boss, this is the real fundamental issue that is holding us back.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I think that honesty, the candid conversations, I think the time has come, right? And there is enough trust, like what you rightly said. Today, we've been able to win trust because all said and done, right? Companies, whether we talk of just the unicorn rate, of course, it's a stepping stone to larger businesses, depends on how you view it, is actually today the pride of India, coming out of a pandemic, where we see the world, the only, through the year, all was this, when you open the front page, one more unicorn, there's a positive story to the entrepreneurial spirit unleashing. You mentioned about people who don't, enjoy their job, go there. I was at a convocation and it was a fairly large one, and I asked them, I said, how many of you want to become, job seekers or job creator? You won't believe 65, 70% in the audience put up, we want to create jobs. We don't want to just go and, work somewhere. I agree. That's of course a little too extreme, and we know large part of them will fail, but the time for India is now, right? It's not only the large guys who are getting bigger, but the whole grassroots upward mobility of so many new entrepreneurs waiting to find solutions to difficult problems over the years.
I share one point with you, which I'm sure you already know.
Yeah.
When I used to interact with people in Europe in 2000 and interact with people in the US in 2000, people in the US already believed Indians were smart and were digitally savvy and all that stuff, but Europe did not believe so. Europe actually believed India was backward. Today, when I talk to people in Europe, when they hear it's an Indian founder, they take a step back. They understand that this thing requires a huge amount of respect. They say, and they make a point of it. Oh, there's this company's got an Indian founder. It means that's a very competitive, cutting edge company, which is going to be very hard to compete with, right? And I think that makes me feel very proud that we've achieved that respect. I think, look, boss, intent is awesome. Government intent, individual intent is awesome. We are still stuck in a time warp. We have old rules that need some changing. They're not very difficult to change. I think that needs to happen. It's really that simple.
Like in your own business, you put a timeline, right? Like we will achieve so and so in so much time frame, right? If you
this needs to be done in
the framework, how do we?
Rajan, if I would take up a
success. Yeah,
I would take up a target of doing it within 3 months. Because these things are somehow, those rules are somehow so logical they can be changed. That there is no reason to not do it. There is no reason to not have an automatic approval process for every company in the country who is listed on the stock exchange to be able to operate abroad. No reason. Have an automatic process. Why not? They're already on the stock exchange. They're already fully monitored. Why are we blocking that, right? And whatever capital they require, have an automatic process. Obviously, anybody caught ever, dodging the system and kind of taking that for the personal gain and, breaking FDI and all, put them in jail straight away. Right? What do you have? A system of trust, which operates well. And if the trust is broken, there are consequences. You have the results out of it. But I think that is required rather than kind of, throwing the baby with the bathwater and saying, okay, we're going to make everything so tough that everything will take a year and people will just give up.
I think it's a 180-degree shift in the way, we will operate both, across the board as well as vertically, right? Because I think the problem that you're talking of will impact so many industries, right? It's not just your industry or fintech, but will open up that cultural shift, and really what India will stand for and share with the world as we continue to, take this on. And it's interesting, right? When we talk of India or Indianness, right? And that export to the world, you said when you go there, Indian founders are looked upon, with a great degree of respect. A lot has changed, right? In
20 years has changed everything.
And now if we are looking, for the future and really being able to create or take, I would say, leverage that impression or, the brand value or the brand equity that Indian and Indianness has created, we need to be able to have a policy framework and other stakeholders that can, make that happen. But tell me, if like we said, here's a 250-day agenda, right? Yashish says, we want to put out a 250-day or a 6-month agenda, 7-month, whatever, however time frame we want to put it, right? Getting policy changes is definitely one part of it. As an industry, as a group of members from society, what can we do, right? Because I think the vision is very clear, right? What you're saying, we have to go out there, claim
Rajan, at this point, one has to be very clear on what one wants change in, and where one wants government help, and that is policy change. Beyond policy change, the entrepreneurial strength of India is so immense right now that I'm like supremely confident we just cannot be stopped. We're in that stage. So what do you need to ask of such an entrepreneurial bunch? The only thing we have to be worried about is more Indians doing even better. Right? That's going to happen automatically. I think what we have to worry about is, at least in the short term, is that all going to happen in Dubai or Singapore, or is it going to happen in India also? And I think a lot of it is happening in India, but whatever is happening in India is staying within India. And somewhere, and I think from an entrepreneurship perspective, when we look at individual areas, whether we look at insurance, we are following a 1932 Act. Come on, 1932. Yeah, so 1932 is an old act. Somebody needs to, every 5 years, what we need to have is a review. Which orders, which rules are still required, which are still pertinent. If they are not pertinent, why have them? Just like we do a spring cleaning of our house once in a while, and we say, okay, whatever we've not used for 5 years, let's donate it or let's kind of get rid of it. So I think in some respect we need that, because people somehow remember these rules and they keep coming in the way of us. And we've suffered over the last 13, 14 years, but let new entrepreneurs not suffer with that. Right? Because for us, we've come through that. But the point is, let's at least make sure it doesn't happen for the future. So I think a lot of our effort from a government standpoint has to be on. The second area is going to be on data provision. And I think the government is playing a phenomenal role there with the UPI, with the Aadhaar, with the NDHM, with the account aggregator framework. So I think that is the second agenda. Be the data repository, be the data holder. Of course, privatize it, work in public-private partnerships, and make it available freely to everyone with consent, so that everybody can really grow this ecosystem in India. I think these are the two areas that we need government help. Quite honestly, this whole aspect of, okay, we need a funding and all, nobody needs it. There are fund houses lining up. There's so much money available to come into India. So much. There is no dearth of it. So there's no point setting up another 10,000 crore corpus, because there's probably lakhs of crores lying there, which is dying to come into India for these entrepreneurs. So I think that's not required at all.
Yeah. No, you're reviewing this every 5 years, because what you rightly said, 5 years ago, maybe the fund was required. Or maybe 10 years ago, the funds were required. Today, not required. So I think even this journey to India at 100 really needs very strong reviews as 80, 85, 90, 95. And, disruption is happening so much faster today, right? Yeah.
And which rules do we not require is a must. I think we have to go into it. Okay, these are the 100 rules we have. We don't require. Why do we require each one of them?
Yeah. I think understanding dropping 90 and adding 3 will probably be the best way.
Probably the best solution we can get.
But just this whole insurance piece, right, is a very important one for a country like us, right? Like where you say, when we talk of level of social security, like say in the West, etc., and you said insurance, continues to play a very, very key role, right? It's preventive health, and then, primary care, and so many other things. So do you see many more problems that need to be solved through
Rajan, in my view, as far as insurance is concerned, it's a very, very serious matter.
Yeah.
Any country can afford universal, quality service provision, because see, whatever you do with technology, the quality service provision always has a certain cost, right? Or at least where the middle class would want their children to go, whether it's to school or whether it is to get some treatment. Because when you do the treatment, it has to be unfortunately done physically. And there's a cost to the doctor, and there's a cost to that space and the equipment and everything else, right? So quality healthcare at a universal level really struggles to be afforded at below $30,000 per capita income anywhere in the world. So it's not about the West being ahead or anything else. It's all about money at the end of it. The NHS system is one of the most efficient systems in the world. It works at about 14% of GDP. It's about 9% of GDP. But it is the most efficient healthcare system in the world today, right? So I guess, and I don't think we can expect the 1-2% that we spend on healthcare to suddenly go to 10-15%. India has different, when you look at the expense of India, we have oil imports, we have various other things that are there. And our resources, our revenues are still limited. So I guess somewhere insurance has to be the cornerstone of the middle class getting protection for themselves. And in that, we have to play the enabling and the education role. Now, insurance can easily do that, because the middle class automatically means there is a certain amount of income, and 1,000 rupees per month can be afforded. And 1,000 rupees per month is exactly what one is talking about in being able to afford insurance for everyone. So I guess the back-end technology infrastructure is where the government can really help, because without the government support, that won't happen easily. because they are two different industries. There's the healthcare industry and the insurance industry that have to work together. Both of these, one of them has a regulator, one of them does not have a regulator. So they won't be able to work together till the government enforces something like the National Digital Health Mission and all claims being paid through that, etc. So I guess that is the piece that the government needs to kind of support on.
And you see large global players being benefited. I mean, you can benefit from those kinds of partnerships, or do you really feel in the insurtech space, we are pretty much going to shape the future of the world as we move forward?
I think in the insurtech space, I increasingly hear what is happening in India is very real. And the world is starting to see there are a lot of fads in the world that happen. And people are starting to realize, okay, these were fads. And what's happening in India is very real. The change that's happening is very real. And quite honestly, the other countries don't have the opportunity India has.
Yeah.
Because you cannot really provide health insurance in Europe. And even in the US, etc., with whatever social security is available in these countries, it's a Southeast Asia opportunity, which is why I say India is very well poised. It's not even a China opportunity, honestly, because there the government, involvement in the healthcare system is very high. India largely has a private healthcare system.
So a global insurtech leadership, India at 100, opening up, adequately, quickly right now to be able to give us that shot, is big one.
Absolutely.
And I think, a lot of the tech initiatives, and we're seeing that in fintech, right? Like you talked about old generation businesses, and new gen. And I think that bridge between the two, right? Adding layers on top of the existing large businesses that might be serving so many millions of consumers elsewhere is also a big opportunity to make them more efficient, operationally more effective. They could even be governments, right? So is that a fair way to look at the overall size of this opportunity?
We have more people, we have more data, we have better technology, we have cheaper technology. Cheaper does not mean worse, it means more efficient. We have smart entrepreneurship happening in the country. I see no reason why we will not be the leaders. I see zero reason why that will not happen. I think we have to simply be the enablers, which is basically make sure the roads are not blocked, basically make sure our laws are supportive, etc., etc. And quite honestly, we're not even talking about cryptocurrency or anything of that sort right now, which may have certain inherent risks that people need to sort of absorb. Here we're just talking about, okay, whatever makes sense, can that be just permitted freely?
Yeah, and the way the public markets are running in India, there's
a lot of capital available. There's a huge amount of capital available for anything in India. One doesn't have to worry about that, because and I don't want to go into any country specific, but most of the markets are blocked out. If you think about it, why do I say most? In fact, I'd say all the large markets are blocked out for investment. So eventually, you can invest there, but you will never get your money back. This seems to be the only market where you can invest and still hope to have the ability to retain your equity 20, 30 years from then.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know we had a small acquisition in Ukraine, and now suddenly we don't know where the team is right now. Something like that ever happening to someone who has created an investment in India is very unlikely, right? I mean, just kind of.
Yeah, it's much less likely.
Yeah.
It's much less likely. India is likely to stay a neutral state or a West-aligned state for the longest period of time, or a democratic country. So I think there are certain inherent advantages in the emerging world that India has, and that is not of being cheap, it is of being smart. It's of being digitally savvy. It's about having data, it's about having consumers, and it's about being the leader, not a benefactor from the others, quite honestly.
Do you see Indians still proliferating, like, as people going into different countries, aging populations happening in the rest of the world, meaningfully on the ground, making change in the future as well? I mean,
certainly are. They certainly are everywhere. Everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think you look across the world, you will find, I would say 60% of tech startups in the world would have an Indian founder.
Wow, that's a big.
I'm saying leave out China, leave out Russia and whatever's going on there.
Yeah.
I'm saying, and I'm not commenting on those countries because I refuse to comment on any country. I'm just saying, if you look at what you call the democratic world, so to say, and you say, okay, of all the entrepreneurship happening there, how much of it is Indian enabled? I would say at least half of them have got an Indian founder.
Yeah, 60 of the Fortune 500 companies have Indian CEOs.
Exactly.
200 political leaders, around the world have Indian origin, including Prime Minister of Portugal and Vice President of the US in some shape and form. The influence of Indians around the world is something.
We're a smart, adaptive people. Yeah. It's just that simple.
Yeah.
I think, but all I'm trying to say is, what do we take away from here? We're a smart, adaptive, rule-abiding people because we obviously abide by rules. That's why we become CEOs of all these companies.
Sure.
And India has a government which has a very high intent to be a global leader. I think we need to put it to action very rapidly, without giving it a 5-year look. Yeah. This is something that does not need to take long. Yeah. I trust every employee of our company the day they join us. Right? Till they have proven themselves to be not worthy of that trust. Till that day, they are 100% trusted. Everybody's 100% trusted. Right? That's exactly what we need.
That's music to my ears because I say the same. But you're absolutely right? I mean, why not? One has to ask that question, why not? Right? At the end of the day,
forget even that.
Yeah.
What else are you going to do? If you're not going to trust your own people, what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
You're going to keep looking at your back all the time. You're going to waste your time on that stuff. What's the point?
Yeah. At the core, the human values or what we believe, which India has actually taught the world, right? So today we are seeing such a movement happening coming out of India. If we don't do it here, then there's no way we'll be able to make that happen. No, I think, it's just it's just such an opportunity, right? And I think that excitement, has been there in your voice right through in all your, all your comments. And, particularly when we talk of, the innovation required to drive us from an aspiration society to really an outcome-led society. Like while we talk of, I have a dream, the dream is already a reality, but that's what you said, right? The dream that you had is real, but we have just a few more minutes and I will let you go because we've spoken for an hour and we can go on, right? There's no end to a topic where, we can have so much passion and about, India, about people, about the youth. But if you were to really have a bold, crazy dream, maybe it from for an Indian, right? I mean, we are seeing in the world, Japan has shown, the citizen at the center, society 5.0, just changing the way society will be, right? 10 years from today, right? If you had that dream, right? I mean, we still have basic issues to solve for in a country like India. But when you see India at 100, right? What do you see? You close your eyes, you open it, what do you see?
Rajan, the biggest thing I see is our people wanting to work in India, our billionaires not moving their money to London, but moving it to India, and billionaires abroad moving their monies to India. Not just funds, because they believe that's not just a place of growth, that's the place of secure growth. Today, why does everywhere across the world so much capital flow into London? The reason is they find security there, right? And I think the time has to come where that starts happening for India. India will be a technology leader. I have zero doubt there. India will be teaching the world everything. But we will become strong the day our successful people do not need to feel the need to move out from a risk mitigation perspective. when they feel that they are moving out to grow India, that is the day when we will win in the real sense. Because today, when I speak to entrepreneurs, a lot of them do it from a risk mitigation point of view. You cannot have all your eggs in one basket. Why not? It is the only basket you have, by the way. Why can't it be the only basket we all have, right? And yes, you do whatever else one. So I think that will require a huge amount of trust. I think what I'm talking about is trust between businesses and between government. And to be brutally honest, that's exactly what, at some level, the US has. That's exactly what the West has. What does the West have that the other parts of the world don't? They have that trust between citizen and government, that the citizens don't feel the need to risk mitigate. You know, as I was walking last night, I was walking along in London, and my house is quite remote. And I saw a police guy parked there. And, you know, you just walk up, you say, hi, how are you? Hello. You feel good seeing a police person. That, look, he's keeping the neighborhood safe. That trust is very important, right? And I think, to me, we have a golden opportunity in the next 5 years, 10 years to cement that trust between both sides. Today, if you honestly ask me, that trust is the biggest lacking factor in our strength.
Absolutely. And, you know, that's the core of a family. You know,
Exactly.
irrespective of what
We are
you
family,
have,
right?
it drives India, right? So what you are really touching, the attribute or the value, is what is you see in plenty in India, and we just hope that we can build it, you know, as a society with each other. I mean, what a lovely, enriching conversation, Yashish. And I'm going to take you up. You know, we are going to do a lot of those smaller roundtables with the right people sitting there. You know, I think, you know, as you rightly said, while we are continuing to do and grow our businesses, I think the change we can make, you know, for the country by investing some of our time there, and of course it will benefit us and everyone else, you know, is so important. So I will be taking you up on that as we
We'll be delighted.
march towards, you know, India at 100. And, you know, CI has been really committed. I must tell you, this is one industry body from India at 60 in 2007, 2008, when we met the Prime Minister, then the CM of Gujarat. You know, he actually said, Delhi aayenge to karenge. And come 2014, we had New India of 2022. And what you rightly said, over these years, we've seen so many, you know, small steps, but very important steps that have now added up to us reaching a takeoff point. And I think it's...
No, the intent is crystal clear. The intent is 100%. The trust on the intent is 100%. I think the time has come for the execution momentum, which has also gathered pace. Now it just needs to pervade every sector and just do it. It's really that simple. So I think the last 1.5 years have been phenomenal from, you know, every aspect in terms of the intent turning into reality. And I think it's just, let's just gather the momentum and kind of get it done.
We'll make it happen together.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thank you so much
for joining us. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.